Hi. So for a little while, there was a debate in Congress about passing comprehensive prison reform. I'm just wondering, has that been permanently shelved in Congress, and what your stance is on prison reform?
I'm for almost any criminal justice reform you can name. I'm for it. I wrote recently with Kamala Harris about bail reform. And one of the reasons I'm for bail reform is, and I would suggest that everybody read this in here. It's probably the most dramatic case I've ever read, and you should all know the story of it if you have a heart and want to have a heart about our judicial system. It's the story of Khalif Browder. Who's heard of Khalif Browder and his story? Not many. You should all read it. It was in the New Yorker about a year and a half ago. He was arrested for allegedly stealing a backpack. He is put in Rikers Island. He's 16. The bail's $3,000. He cannot come up with bail, so that's the first problem. But here's the second problem. He was kept for 3 years in Rikers Island, 2 years in solitary confinement. He was beaten by guards, beaten by prisoners, which also shouldn't happen in our prisons, and then ultimately tried to commit suicide in prison several times, got out, never could function again, and then committed suicide, and unfortunately was successful. We need reform of this system. The other thing you need to be aware of, and this will be way out there for some of you in the Federal Society, Michelle Alexander. Read her book about, can anybody remember the name?
The New Jim Crow.
Say again?
The New Jim Crow.
The New Jim Crow, because it talks about, and I think this is an important distinction also, it is not, most of the disparity in our outcomes of our judicial system is not intentional racism, I don't think. I don't think the cops are all racist. I don't think the mayors and judges and lawyers are all racist. But I do think there's a disparate outcome when you look at who's in prison. If you measure drug use from whites and blacks, it's about equal by most surveys. But if you look at the prison, 4 out of 5 people in prison are black or brown. They don't have the resources. They do worse on plea bargaining. Every step of the way, they don't do as well. And the answer to it is somewhat not having such a harsh war on drugs and not putting people in prison for drug use. But the other answer is we do need to be conscious of it as far as the disparity in this. And I think it also leads to some despair, anger, and a lot of the other problems we have. And I can promise you, all you got to do is think of, if you're a rich white kid and live in the suburbs and you smoke pot in your parents' basement, what are the odds of you being caught? Almost zero. But if you're a poor kid in the city and there's no place you can go inside and you're smoking pot on a corner, you're going to be caught. And so 9 times out of 10, you're going to be caught. And the white kid in the suburbs, or rich kid, doesn't always have to be white, is not going to be caught. So this disparity adds up over time. So I'm for almost all of the criminal justice reform that you can name. Bail reform, letting people vote again, expunging records. And it's actually become a bipartisan thing. In my state, the governor is Republican, evangelical Christian, conservative as you get, but we passed an expungement bill that says, I think it's not all crimes, but for many crimes, after a certain period of time, your records get wiped clean. And from a Republican point of view that doesn't want a huge welfare state, I want people to work. If you've committed a crime, you're not going back to work. If you've got a record that prevents it, and you're either going back to committing crimes, but to get people back to work, and not everybody will. I mean, a third may work, a third may commit more crimes, and a third are going back to jail. But we have a chance with some people if we'll let them have a second chance.